Okay, let's do some practice. For numbers 1 through 6, we are going to find the independent clause within each of the following sentences. Remember, this means that it could be taken out of the full sentence and stand alone as a sentence by itself with a subject, a verb, and as a complete thought. As a hint, let's take a look for commas. Sometimes commas set off a clause in a sentence. That's going to be one of our tricks that we'll use along the way. Let's look at number 1. Just as Terry came in the door, the phone rang. What I'm looking for within this larger sentence is an independent clause, a subject and verb that I could lift out. Let's start from the beginning of the sentence. Let's see, let me find my first subject. I see the word Terry as a person. That could be a subject. And I see the verb came. Okay, so I have a subject and a verb. Let's take a look at this phrase and see if it can stand alone before the comma. Just as Terry came in the door. Let's say I think that's the independent clause. All right, so if that's the independent clause, we'll try it out. We have a subject, we have a verb. Let's cross off the rest of this. Okay, so if this is my independent clause, I could lift that up out of the sentence, plop it down by itself, and it would make sense. Have a subject, a verb, and be a complete thought. Let's test it out. Just as Terry came in the door, sixth grade, there's a problem. I see a subject, I see a verb, but does that phrase give me a complete thought? No. Just as Terry came in the door, what? What happened when Terry came in the door? I don't know, do I? So that cannot be a complete thought. It cannot be an independent clause. Let's look after the comma. What do we see next? The phone rang. Let's try that. Cover up the first part of the sentence. This leaves the words, the phone rang. Can that stand alone as a sentence? Let's try it out. The phone rang. I have a subject. I have a verb. And it's a short sentence, but does it make sense? Absolutely. It can stand alone as a complete thought. So my independent clause is the phone rang. I could lift it up, set it aside, and it would be a complete thought. What did the phone do? Ring. Let's look at number 2. Before you accept the invitation, you ask your mother. Once again, let's use that comma as our hint there that there's a couple of different things going on here. Let's look at the first part of the sentence. Before you accept the invitation, let's find a subject. I see the word you, which can be a subject, and I see a verb accept. Okay, let's test it out. Before you accept the invitation. I have a subject, I have a verb, but I don't have a complete thought. Before you accept the invitation, what happens? We don't know. Okay, let's try the second half. You ask your mother. Find a subject? Yes. Do we have a verb? Yes. Do we have a complete thought? You ask your mother. Subject, you. What do? Ask. Who do you ask? Your mother. Is that a complete thought? Yes, it is. Here is our independent clause. Look at number 3. When the snow melts, these streams will fill and rush down to the valley. Once again, we have 2 different phrases that are in here, but which one is independent? Which one has a subject, a verb, and a complete thought? I'm going to give you a moment to look at it and think. Can we keep when the snow melts by itself? No, we cannot. It's not a complete thought. Hopefully, you saw that streams is a subject, will fill is a verb, rush is a verb. They will fill and rush and do what? Head down to the valley. If you cover this up, does this make a complete sentence? These streams will fill and rush down to the valley. Absolutely. This is your independent clause. Number 4, camels stamped and bellowed in annoyance when packs were put on them. No commas in this one. So how are we going to figure it out? Let's start at the beginning with a subject and a verb. I see a subject of camels. Who is the sentence about? Who or what? Camels. What did the camels do? That's our verb. They stamped and they bellowed. And how did they bellow? In annoyance. Camels stamped and bellowed in annoyance when packs were put on them. Let's start with that first half that we underlined. Can that stand alone? Camels stamped and bellowed in annoyance. Yes, it can. Okay, we have an option for an independent clause. Take a look at the end of the sentence. When packs were put on them. Does this make a complete thought? Can you have a sentence that just says, when packs were put on them? Nope, that's not going to work, is it? It's not a complete thought. Our independent clause is at the beginning of the sentence. Number 5, as far as scientists can tell, there is no connection between these two events. This one has the handy dandy comma there that helps set off clauses. Let's see. Check the first half. As far as scientists can tell, I see a subject, I see a verb. Can it stand alone? As far as scientists can tell, what? Not a complete thought, is it? Therefore, it cannot stand alone. Let's try the second half. There is no connection between these two events. Let's start with our subject. Ooh, a little tricky. It's a pronoun on this one. There. And let's find our verb. Tricky linking verb is, there is what? No connection between these two events. Can this stand alone as a sentence? There is no connection between these two events. Does that make sense as its own separate sentence? Yes, that is your independent clause. Look at the last one. You were always singing when you were little. Start by finding the first subject, pronoun again, you, and the linking verb again, were. And what were you always doing? Singing, always singing. You were always singing when you were little. We already have a complete thought right here. You were always singing. That can stand by itself. There's an independent clause. Take a look at the second half of the sentence. When you were little. When you were little, can that stand alone as a sentence? No. When you were little, what? What happened, right? That's missing a complete thought. In this case, the first half of the sentence is the independent clause. So as you can see in these sentences, there's a couple things we need to look for. The first thing is, do you see a comma in that sentence? And will that be helpful for you? And the second thing is, when you lift out that independent clause, can it stand alone as its own sentence and still make sense? Hopefully that helps you as you dive into your assignment. The next video is going to be going through your worksheet on independent clauses.